For a decade, the desert wind had carried only the voices of women and children through the canyons of the Apache camp. 10 years since the men of the tribe had been cut down in a raid that left the survivors clinging to life, hidden deep in the mesas. They had endured with courage, but every passing year felt heavier, the weight of survival pressing harder without warriors to guard them. Rumors spread in nearby towns that the Apache were finished, a people with no future. And yet, beneath the wide sky and red stone cliffs, the women kept the fires burning, kept the children fed, and kept their spirit alive. But what no one expected was that fate would ride into their lives in the form of one lone cowboy. He came not as a conqueror nor as a hired gun, but as a man running from his own past. His horse was lean, his clothes travel-worn, his face shadowed by a hat that had seen too many storms. He had crossed the desert not for riches nor revenge, but because he had nowhere else to go. The land had a way of stripping a man down, forcing him to reckon with who he truly was. And when he stumbled upon the hidden canyon where the tribe lived, he thought at first he had found a mirage, voices on the wind, women standing at the river's edge, eyes sharp as blades but weary from years of holding a world together on their own. The first arrows flew before he could speak, not meant to kill, but to warn. He raised his hands, hat lifted, showing he bore no weapon in readiness, though his revolver still hung at his hip. "I ain't here to harm you," he called, his voice steady against the echoing cliffs. Silence followed, then a woman stepped forward. She was tall, her dark braids streaked with silver, her gaze unflinching. She studied him like one might study a rattlesnake, wondering if it would strike or pass by harmless. "No men," she said flatly, her English broken but firm. 10 years, none. Her words struck like thunder, and he felt the depth of them in his bones. He could have turned away then, left them to their fate. But there was something in the way the children peeked from behind their mother's skirts, something in the silent strength of the women who had carried their people this far, that pulled at him. "I'm not here to take," he said, "only to give what I can." A murmur rippled through the gathered women, suspicion mixing with curiosity. Few men had ever spoken so, and fewer still had walked into an Apache camp without fear. The days that followed tested him more than any gunfight ever had. He was made to sleep apart, watched by sharp eyes, never trusted fully. Yet when he saw a child struggling to haul water, he carried the bucket without being asked. When a storm tore down a shelter, he helped rebuild it with nothing but his hands. Slowly, the suspicion softened into something else, though no one said it aloud. It had been 10 long years since they had known the presence of a man who gave more than he took. Around the fire at night, the grandmother of the tribe finally spoke to him. Her voice was rough as stone but carried the weight of command. "Why do you help?" she asked. He thought long before answering, staring into the flames. "Because I've spent too long helping no one," he admitted. "And it's made me a poorer man than I care to be." She studied him a long while before nodding, as if she had heard the truth in his bones. "Then maybe you are here for more than yourself," she said. In time, he began to see the cracks in their world. Raiders had circled near their lands, sniffing out the weakness of a people with no warriors to defend them. The women were fierce, unyielding, but against rifles and hardened outlaws, courage alone would not hold. He found himself standing taller at the edge of camp, watching the ridges. Hand resting on his Colt. A protector by instinct, he realized he was no longer drifting through life, he had been anchored by their need and by his own longing to matter. Whispers spread among the younger women, voices filled with both fear and wonder. "A man," they said softly. "After 10 years, a man walks among us." He heard them, though they thought he could not, and the words struck him with a strange gravity. He had never considered himself anyone's answer, but here, in this canyon carved by time, he was more than just a wanderer. He was a piece of hope they had long been denied, yet not all welcomed him. Some saw danger in his presence, fearing his footsteps would lead raiders to their hidden sanctuary. Others feared that the memories of bloodshed would return, that trusting him would open wounds barely scarred over. He bore their suspicion without anger, for he knew trust was earned slowly, like the patient carving of stone by river water. So he kept working, kept watching, kept offering without asking. And little by little, the walls around their hearts began to crack. It was one night, when the stars burned cold and bright above them, that the grandmother spoke again, this time before the gathered camp. 10 years we have lived without men, she said, her voice strong despite her years. But perhaps the Great Spirit has sent us one, not to take our strength, but to stand with it. The women murmured, uncertain, but their eyes turned toward him. He felt the weight of their gaze, the burden of their history, and he knew in that moment his life had changed. He had not come to save them. But perhaps, in standing with them, they might save him. The first sign of trouble came with smoke on the horizon. Thin, black streaks curling into the sky from the west, too heavy to be campfires, too close to ignore. The children noticed first, pointing with small fingers, and soon the entire camp gathered at the edge of the canyon to watch. The cowboy's jaw tightened. He had seen that kind of smoke before, raiders burning homesteads to the ground, leaving ash and silence behind. The women looked to one another, unease flickering in their eyes, but no one spoke. He stepped forward, his voice low but firm. They'll come this way. Raiders always do. The words fell heavy, and silence wrapped around them like a noose. That night the camp was restless. Fires burned low, women murmured in hushed tones, and children clung close to their mothers. The cowboy sat apart, sharpening his knife by the dim glow of the flames, his revolver resting beside him. He could leave. No one had bound him to this place. But the thought of riding away while the tribe was left defenseless gnawed at him like a vulture on bone. He wasn't sure when their survival had become his burden, but he felt it now, deep in his chest. And he knew that walking away would be the same as betraying himself. At dawn, he sought out the grandmother, who sat weaving by the fire, her hands steady despite the tension gripping the camp. They won't survive another raid, he said, blunt and unyielding. Not alone, not without men to fight. Her eyes lifted, sharp as obsidian, and for a moment he thought she might rebuke him. Instead, she said, then perhaps it is time we fight differently. She nodded toward the gathered women, their faces lined with strength and worry. We are not without hands. We are not without spirit. Teach us what we do not know. The words struck him harder than a bullet. Teach them. He had never trained anyone in his life, let alone women who had carried the weight of survival without ever firing a rifle. But as he looked around, he saw determination staring back at him, raw and unflinching. They did not need him to be a savior, they needed him to be a guide. Slowly, he nodded. All right then, he said, his voice steady. If you're willing to learn, I'll make fighters of you yet. The days that followed transformed the canyon into something fierce and alive. He showed them how to hold a rifle steady, how to breathe before pulling the trigger, how to aim not with fear but with purpose. Children carried arrows and fetched water, watching with wide eyes as their mothers trained with bows, rifles, and knives. The women's hands were calloused from work, but their grip was sure, their stances unshakable. And as the sun burned overhead, laughter sometimes broke through the sweat and effort, a sound the canyon had not heard in years. At night, the women gathered around him, asking questions, testing their skills, pushing themselves beyond weariness. Some failed and cursed, only to try again. Others surprised him with their precision, their sharp eyes hitting targets with deadly accuracy. He found himself watching them not as a weary drifter, but as a commander would watch his soldiers, pride welling in his chest. They were no longer just survivors, they were becoming defenders. And he knew then that the raiders would not find an easy mark. Still, doubts lingered. Some whispered that no matter how hard they trained, they were not warriors, that one cowboy could not change the fate of an entire tribe. He heard these whispers, felt the weight of their fear. Yet he also saw the way the women stood taller, how the children's eyes gleamed with hope for the first time in years. And he realized that the true battle was not against raiders alone, it was against despair. Teaching them to fight gave them more than weapons, it gave them the belief that they were no longer helpless. The raiders came sooner than expected, a band of hard-eyed men riding in with rifles slung across their backs, their laughter echoing off the canyon walls. Dust rose with their approach, the smell of smoke and leather filling the air. The women stood ready, rifles in hand, bows drawn tight, their children hidden deep within the caves. The cowboy stood at the front, hat low, revolver gleaming in the sun. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with the steady certainty that they would not fall easily. Not this time, not after 10 years of silence. The first shot cracked the air, sharp as lightning, and the battle erupted. Women who had never held weapons before fired with precision, arrows whistling, bullets striking true. The raiders staggered, caught off guard by the ferocity of those they had thought weak. The cowboy moved like a shadow among them, his revolver blazing, his knife flashing when the fight turned close. But what struck him most was not his own hand in the battle, it was theirs. He saw them fight like warriors, like the spirits of their fallen husbands and brothers had risen through them. And in that moment, he knew their fate had already changed. When the dust finally settled, the canyon was silent again, save for the heavy breathing of those who had survived. The raiders lay scattered, driven back by the strength of women who refused to surrender. The cowboy lowered his weapon, his chest heaving, eyes scanning the camp. And then he saw it, the look in their eyes. Not just relief, not just survival, but victory. For the first time in a decade, they had faced death and sent it running. And it was then he understood. The fate of the Apache tribe had never rested on him alone. It had rested on their spirit, and he had merely lit the fire that brought it roaring back to life.